Hello, and welcome to the Sunbloom Conversations, a series of conversations from around the world inspired by the censorship on social media of an image of a breastfeeding mother that we're going to paint on a 3-story wall in Bristol, UK instead. I'm Claire Tchaikowski, the founder of Human Milk, an award-winning clothing brand and global education movement that supports the lives and well-being of women and their families by communicating the science of human milk and breastfeeding. Today I'm talking with Charlotte Gouyette about why we're painting the mural and making a documentary telling the story. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Charlotte. So we've actually been chatting for quite a while, realised that we didn't introduce ourselves during the call. Let's be honest.
So I'm Charlotte Gouyette. I'm from England, but I'm based in Lisbon in Portugal. My business is called Positiva, and it's a combination of coaching and education to support women and their partners throughout this birth and motherhood and womanhood transition of their lives. So I'll be consulting and helping to project manage it and event manage. So I'll be there on the days that we'll be painting the mural and doing interviews and just part of this collective of conversations that we'll be having about issues that we're presented with this particular transition of our lives. What are the issues and how can we support and how can people access that support and get their voices heard?
And where do we find that support, and how do we find what's right for us, especially knowing there are many cultural filters at work that present some things to us and some messages to us, but not others. Case in point, an image like Sunbloom that we're not allowed to boost or advertise on sort of two of the biggest social media platforms of how people get their information. How do you reach motherhood already knowing that you need to know certain things?
Yeah, so it's tricky. I think saying about how we just don't know what you don't know. Like, how do you look for something when you don't know it exists? You don't know what's coming. There's that uncertainty. How do you know what you need to find? And then how do you find something that feels right for you? So it's so tricky, and there's so many moments of transitions through that journey. So it's like the preparation when you become pregnant, and for some people that's even a journey in itself. You know, like how do you navigate that? Then during the pregnancy and preparing for the birth, I think in England more and more people are aware of doing some kind of birth preparation,
Mm.
but it's still not a given, and less alone in other countries not really knowing where to find this information, where to find the support. But for me, it's interesting because you found it chaotic the moment you kind of came into parenthood, and for me, yes, parenthood is just chaotic anyway. But I found it manageable, and I was very much focused on work still, which was another situation on its own. Like, you know, kind of pushing through, acting like nothing changes.
Mm.
But for me, the crash came after baby number 2, trying to juggle so much with work, like trying to kind of run 2 businesses in 2 completely different industries, then having 2 children, living in another country. Like, that's really for me when it was like nobody prepares us for any of this. And becoming a parent of 2, each of these is so unique in their own way. So it's just so complex.
And this, I feel, leads us quite well into the meaning and the importance of the messaging that we see on a daily basis around us. And that images are a very powerful thing. You see them for a split second and you have formed some sort of relationship to what you've just seen. The images of breastfeeding mothers are not very common at all, let's put it that way. And that leads into, well, where do we get those? How does an environment set us up for those big transitions? And the importance of seeing that imagery and the meaning of censoring the images that we need to see, because those are the images that get us ready,
And we're
whether we
talking
even
about
realize or not.
and we're talking about big life transitions,
Yeah.
we see plenty of media showing us makeup and clothing and like things that we don't really need. Like they're in full force when we're looking around all the time, but we need things that are really going to prepare us for those moments in our lives that are going to enable us to um, navigate them and have the connections with people and raise families and kind of create an environment that is supportive and loving and compassionate. And it
Yes.
really does come, like you say, from the things that we see. We have to be able to see this and see the representation to be able to relate and to know that we're not alone and that we're doing things okay and we're like, this is very much normal.
A lot of the stress I think I experienced was because I had just moved. So I just moved only about 150 miles away from where I'd been all my adult life, but still far too far for friends to pop in for a cup of tea. So I didn't know anyone. And my partner was working full time from about 2 weeks after our son was born. So I spiraled quite quickly from just lack of community, just being on my own all day with this little baby, um, very heavily sleep deprived, etc. As you know, as most of us are, well, after we give birth. So there was that, but there was also this other layer where my instincts were quite strong, but a lot of them clashed with what I'd read in the baby books that I'd, read to be prepared, where so many of them had schedules and this is right and this is wrong, and ideas about what good baby sleep looks like, ideas about how often a baby should be feeding, and most of it clashed with what I was experiencing. And it took a long time to align that and just go, do you know what? I made some quite big decisions along the way to trust my instincts rather than go with the book, because we tried once or twice and like, okay, well, should we just, I don't know, just don't feed him for another bit because he is, feeding quite a lot. So I'll just wait and see. And there was the screaming and the thing, and that every cell in my body was going, this is so wrong. Okay, scoop him up, hold him close, feed him, peace. Everyone went, fuck was that? Okay, let's not do that again. But there was still the worry of like, well, but if I don't do it like it says in the book, is he going to be all right? But so much battling between my instinct and the rules that I had just, I don't even know where I got half them from. And that's where the messaging comes in again, of where did I even get these messages? Where do we even get this information from? That a baby only should be feeding every, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, I don't know. For my mum's generation, it was every 4 hours, which of course you can't establish breastfeeding properly if you take the baby away and you bring it back for a feed every 4 hours. So many women ended up not being able to breastfeed because breastfeeding doesn't get established that way. But that was the right thing. That was the right way to do it. A peer supporter friend of mine who said that one of the mums that she helped quite simply was holding her baby, lovely like this, looking up at her and trying to get the baby to latch on his back. And the baby was having to sort of do this to get to the breast and it wasn't working and so forth. So really, that's a really, really very basic thing. But if you've never seen it, how are you supposed to know?
Yeah.
All the babies in the movies, they're all carried this way with the little face looking up at you, and you do what you see. So if we can't see those images, we can't be ready.
And it's true, because actually most of my kind of coming into parenthood experience was, my breastfeeding experience was built on YouTube channels.
Yeah.
Watching YouTube videos, my husband and I, so that he could help as well. And again, that's kind of dipping into the fact that it's a support, to be able to breastfeed successfully in the way that you want to be able, that feels good for you. You need support, and that comes from your immediate unit, let alone like external unit. So yeah, YouTube videos was great.
But then we get back to the issue of, well, how is that being policed, and how are the choices around the censorship there? Because now, at least thanks to the work of some brilliant women, for the last couple of years, you can post images of breastfeeding on Facebook on your own page or on a business page. You can post them, but you can't boost or advertise them. So that's the difference. So now the way that the algorithms now work on Facebook, in the last 3 to 4 years, this has changed. So we've got a business page, obviously the clothing and the science page. If I post something on the science page or on there, you get the choice immediately that comes up to say, do you want to boost this? And if you investigate what that means, one of the options is simply the people who like your page. And it is now organized in such a way that the vast majority of posts on a public page won't actually reach even the people who like that page unless you pay. And then immediately you get, no, you can't boost that. It's almost, I would say, as insidious to my mind as not allowing it at all. It's better to okay, you can post it, people can then come to the page and go, here it is. So there has been progress, but I would love Facebook to talk to us. I would really love them to come and have a conversation with us. In fact, invitation, Meta, sorry, not Facebook, please come and talk to us. I emailed I think 6 times, and I spoke to on the business accounts, you have a sort of chat facility. I had a number of chats with some really nice concierge, they're called. One of whom said, I totally agree that this is wrong, but I have to put it to the team who make those decisions. And so, and then the email came back shortly afterwards going, well, we've reviewed the situation and no, we're sorry, this is unacceptable, sexually provocative content. So of course I wrote back saying, I stay professional, write back from a professional point of view, explain how this is problematic for women and for girls and for the people that we represent and serve. Could we have a conversation about this? Could we open up a dialogue? I just kept getting the standards. We are sorry that this is not the answer you wanted. Upon detailed review, we can confirm that this is not an acceptable image.
Let's talk about the image.
Yeah.
Because the image is, first of all, it's artwork done by the lovely Chloe, and it's an image of a woman breastfeeding her baby. Yeah. Like you say, there are no nipples showing. There is a baby and in her mother's arms being breastfed. It's not even a photograph. There's not even anything showing. Even if there was, I would say there's not a problem.
Yeah.
But the fact that there isn't, and that it's not even a human image, a human photograph, begs the question, why is this sexually provocative?
Well, interestingly, the link that Facebook sent me of what is and isn't acceptable shows Michelangelo's David, the sculpture, which is in Florence in Italy. Absolutely magnificent sculpture. The photo is of David standing naked, full frontal, not a problem, completely stark naked. That is on and there's a green tick beside it. I screenshot it because I thought they might take this down at some point. There's a green tick. That's okay. So, and that is something I raised with them. I said, how is this okay and this is not? I would love to understand why this image is a problem for you. And I would love a conversation because I would like to know what perspective brings that conclusion.
So I think it would be good to give a bit of context here in terms of how we know each other, how this has even come to fruition.
Yeah.
And what we see happening over the next few months.
Great.
So it's interesting because when I was talking to someone the other day, I was like, so we met during business coaching program with Dent. And I think it's always amazing when you meet someone that's kind of in your world of work, but in a completely different context in some way. Like entrepreneurship is obviously something that we do, but in terms of our field of work, it's rare to see somebody that does similar things to you. So that was automatically a reason for us to be in touch. But I don't think either of us realised how much of a friendship we would form from this, as well as being colleagues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a real ride learning about business, but also understanding the issues that we face and how we want to make an impact in the world, really, with the areas that we're working on. And through constant, well, regular conversations that are always putting the world to rights. And ultimately, they're rooted in motherhood and womanhood and our own experiences, but also the people that we work with, the people that we come across, and the issues, but more focused on the underrated power that we all have, really.
Mm.
And for me, this is pretty much what I want to be focusing on throughout this project. It's like giving the voice to the women that identify with Sunbloom, the image, that are recognizing the power within them and giving the voice to that.
Yes, absolutely. Our reason for doing what we do is at its core the same, really, isn't it?
Yes.
It's tapping into that power, trying to find ways to enable, because the power's there. It's in all of us. But how do we become aware of it, and what do we do with it, and etc. So that was, I think it took us a few conversations to go, you're doing that too, aren't you? Yeah, this is through different routes, but very complementary routes.
Yeah, very much aligned.
And really, I guess Sunbloom, here I just want to shout out to Chloe Trayhurn, who is the painter, the artist who painted Sunbloom. We're going to have a conversation with her, a whole hour with Chloe as well, very shortly. Her work, all of her body of work, is just such a stunning representation of womanhood and motherhood. And Sunbloom just really touched us both, didn't it? The image itself, and then also what happened to her. It's almost not an image for us anymore. She's a woman. She's all of us. And what happened to her is not okay with any of us. It feels personal. It feels like she herself, we, all of us, are being censored. So we really felt a big connection beyond the imagery. And I suppose maybe that's where the crossover happens between, yes, it's a work of art, but that's the power of it, isn't it? It's the power of art that you relate to it. You get drawn in so deeply because you see yourself in it, and can't rest with what happened to her. Do you think, is that right for you as well?
Yes, I think that's right. And I think I'd just add that this is an image of breastfeeding, but actually the issues of censorship, as we've spoken about many times, they run through so many areas of our lives.
Yeah.
As women, but also we know actually just as people, as all people, as living in different systems, there are so many restrictions in place that prevent us from making kind of free decisions, like we spoke about before, in terms of when are we actually ever making a free decision? When are we ever supported unconditionally to do the best for ourselves and for our loved ones? Where is the funding for that? Where is the people for that? Where is the kind of compassionate thoughts about it as well, which is so evident in this situation with Sunbloom, that it's just lacking. It's just not there. It's not present at all. If this image, which isn't even a photograph of a human, isn't even showing anything, is somebody breastfeeding and like sustaining the life of a child, if that is even censored, then what does that mean for all the other issues in our lives? So it really does start with Sunbloom.
It does. We get censored for so many things, but this brings it right back to the first hours of life. And if you can censor this, if you can perceive this moment to be a woman being sexually provocative, you can perceive us to be sexually provocative and by extension fair game anytime, absolutely anytime and anywhere. And that's something that recurs throughout history. It recurs throughout all different spaces in life. It's what you're doing that is attracting the abuse that you get. If you can identify this stage, sunbloom, as being a problem, then we are always a problem, right? I think that's...
And it pretty much puts the blame on women. It puts the blame on us that we're doing something wrong no matter what we're doing, that we have to change. And like you say, it's been going on for a very, very long time, but it's very present right now, especially to do with the motherhood journey. And I think that we're seeing it all the time. And this is why it's so important that this has to be now. We talked about this before, how like the need for this is now. There's never going to be a right time. Yes, there's a lot of things happening in the world, but there's always a lot of things happening in the world, and women are always on the back burner, especially mothers. It's not something we can just leave someone else to step into, because this is live. This is like real time. Mothers and children are literally in really bad situations because of this. So we can't step back to let other people step in. They just have to step in. And I think that we forget that this affects every single human being in the world. You know, every single
one,
human being is born. I think we seem to forget that.
Yeah.
It affects everybody. So why is there not enough attention put onto it?
I'm regularly told that what we do is quite niche.
What's niche about being born?
Well, I know.
I know what you mean. I'm emphasizing how
like literally every single human that comes into this world is born and is either going to be breastfed or not. That's quite a lot of people that this affects, I would say. But no, it's quite niche.
On those facts, are there? There's not many variables at all. There are variables on the type of journey that you have, but when it comes down to the facts, it's very straightforward.
Yes.
It's not how many. It's not a comparison of how many mascaras there are to choose from.
All of that, there's so much of that. There's so much on the sexualization or sort of social presentation of womanhood. Very little on our biology. And that's one of the things that started Human Milk for me, is that I got really, really pissed off being in the music industry and modeling industry. And, you know, I developed quite early. I was 12, I grew breasts, and I started being harassed all the time, not by boys my own age, but older, up to men 30, 40, 50, 60. I'd get stopped in the fucking street and offered money. So, you know, honestly, I've been through a lot of shit. Yeah. And I got to motherhood, and just in the thick of it, as you say, in the thick of it, in the second to second, you can't just walk off and go, well, I better go and figure out, I better go and learn about this, or someone else will do this for a bit. No, you have to show up right that second. I realized I knew nothing about my body, about my biology.
Yeah.
And actually, the more I discovered about it, the more mesmerized I was, because it is absolutely astonishing. Our biology is astonishing.
We all have our own stories that we tell about ourselves and that we've developed from childhood, that we continue into adulthood. And it's not until really we decide to ask questions about all of that that we can then consciously live the life that we want. And I feel like this is reflected on a collective. You know, when we look at the education systems, yeah, we're not learning shit all about our bodies and about periods and about giving birth. We're seeing things that are so outdated and actually a lot of the time incorrect. And this is why I feel so passionately about this project, because I feel like we're taking control of what we are showing and what people do get to see, and kind of stepping out of that blame culture on that this is unfair and where's things coming. And that is very much the truth as well, like that we're not getting a fair kind of opportunity to have the support, have the funding and all of this. But actually, right now we are taking control of what we can control by giving that voice and doing this project so that people can feel represented. that they can feel heard and they can feel seen, even if it's not on a systemic level. Like, this is why it's so important that we do this.
Absolutely. Yes. And that was a very quick turnaround when I got the news about Sunbloom being censored. Very quickly, I thought, I went through the whole, how dare you? And then I thought, actually, screens are a bit small. I wonder if there's a wall somewhere. I wonder if someone would give us a big, fuck off, massive wall, because she needs to be seen. And because this story needs to be told, and all the stories need to be told. And it's just something from not being seen to being beautifully, enormously seen. And I loved that sort of transition, and it happened very quickly in my head.
I couldn't believe it, because I spoke to you when the censorship had happened,
and I was super cross.
Very angry, as was I, hearing about all of this. And then 2 weeks later, I spoke to you again, and you were like, okay, I've got a wall. Has the top 25 graffiti artists in the world, top 5 in the UK or something. I've got the film production team, and by the way, this isn't just going to be a mural. This is now going to be a film. And we were just talking. You were telling me about these ideas and how you just like had such a drive for this to happen. And you hadn't even intended for me to be helping you. But during the course of our conversation, how we were just talking about all the issues and what we really wanted to be able to achieve with our businesses and with like a wider impact, and really thinking about that bigger picture, because it's not about us, it's about our children, the future generations, and the women that we work with, and the families that are then a knock-on effect from that. And you were like,
yeah, the teenage girls who are going to walk past this and go, wow.
Exactly.
And maybe even have conversations. Sorry, I interrupted you, but yeah.
Then you were like, I need you to do this with me. I was like, yes, like, this is amazing. And just everything just felt so right about what this stands for. Everything that you were mentioning before about kind of how women are going to do this work anyway, whether it's like to do with maternity systems or the research that's going in. The women that are doing this work are going to do it anyway, regardless of the funds. But I do feel like this is how you and I ended up on business coaching, because where we know women are underpaid, women don't get leadership roles, women are, all the statistics are out there, right? And it filters down into so many areas of our lives. And mothers are then, if you become a mum of two children, it's likely that you won't be working, because how do you pay for childcare when you've got 2 children, especially in the UK? There are just so many things that are interweaved into these issues, but it all comes down to censorship and being seen and being visible, and that ultimately depicts what's normal, because I think that's what people think is normal as well. If you don't see it, then it can't be normal, kind of thing. This is the assumption we're making as a society.
I think that's quite a good insight into why this censorship happens. So many industries rely on that point of interruption, whether it's, in birth, I mean, the medicalization of birth, the alternatives, the artificial alternatives for breastfeeding. If you want to get super cross, Gabrielle Palmer's Politics of Breastfeeding is a great place to go, because the conscious interruptions put in the pathway of new mothers towards realizing what their own bodies want to do, what they want to do. And I'm not reflecting here on women who don't want to do it, because I have massive respect for them. So that's something that is really central to what we do. We want to empower every woman to make choices. And then once she's made her choice, I'm behind you. I don't mind. If you don't want to breastfeed, that's what you do. And I'm not going to judge that. So really, this work of empowering women who do want to breastfeed, because there are so many, and women who don't want to breastfeed get a whole lot of crap as well. So just want to acknowledge that. So, but the interruptions that are put on the pathway, often very consciously, because industries depend on us not knowing ourselves and not actually reaching the sort of actualization of our own drive, needs, biology, aspirations. The point of origin of all of this is deep, deep, deep love and care for our family. That instinct is so strong that essentially we're looking to do whatever we have to do to keep them alive in the first few weeks, certainly. How do I keep this thing alive? And then to build on helping them to thrive and to be safe, and to be, every decision we make comes from a deep, deep place of love. And I think in a funny way, it's actually quite easy to prey on that.
Like we're set
It's
up
exhausting. It's
exhausted
exhausting.
before we're even able to ride this roller coaster. So these interruptions, it's like, how many interruptions are you going to have before you're so tired you just give in to something, whatever it may be? Or
Absolutely.
when you do that, because that feeling of giving in might feel like you're making a decision that you don't necessarily feel 100% behind. So then the feelings of guilt and shame come up, and then you get that all from the external as well coming into you, because that's not what the messaging says. And it's like, regardless of how you decide to navigate that journey, somebody is going to say something about one way you're going to do it, every way you're going to, on the flip side of everything. So I think it's just so important, and this is the work that I do really, it's like having that establishing that baseline of who you truly are, because you decided it, not because of anything external. Like being really kind of clued up on that internal compass, because that's actually the only way that you can feel good about the decisions you make, and you can know what you want and how you can live the life that you want. Not to say it's easy, it's just to say that if we're always looking externally for validation, for ideas, for exception, then it's never going to actually make us feel that way.
So one of the things that drew me so much to your work was exactly that, bringing that work, not just the well, one thing being the fact that women are accompanied by you through that process. And I think back and think, my God, I needed you back, you
It's
know,
tricky, isn't it?
that
Because
process. Sorry?
very tricky though, isn't it? Because we can say that now, but a question
Yes.
that always comes up for me is, would I have listened to me then? And it's like, how do we help curate this journey for women so that they get that help early on? And I think
Yeah.
it is really through this work that we're doing in this particular project, the more imagery, the more visibility, the more representation we can get out there, the more women can relate to that and connect with it, and know where to kind of reach out for the support. How many women must look at your work and think, and like literally be learning everything hearing it all for the first time?
Yeah.
Because nobody teaches us that. And I think for so many women, if they just knew, that would then give them a bit more of a bigger picture, so that then they can make those kind of informed decisions. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? We do rely externally on some things, like we rely on caregivers, we rely on family, like there is that external support that we have to rely on somewhat. But having the access to educational resources like yours, for example, is just giving people that confidence and clarity that they have everything that they need. They just need to learn that. They just need to know about it. And I think that must change people's lives when they just suddenly know those facts. And something that you said as well, I think, in terms of taking up space, like I work with some incredible women at the moment who are just on their own missions and making an impact in the world themselves. And every single one of them, and myself included, have this like persistent issue of taking up space. So I feel like this image is so metaphorically important for women to feel like they have permission to take up space in that sense.
Absolutely. Also, it's a signpost to all the resources that you and I wish we'd had, through our website, through working with you, through working with the people that we signpost to together. That is such a big community to signpost to. And I wish that on everyone. I wish that for everyone. I wish for everyone that we journey the world with what we needed and didn't get. And moving from a place of confusion and desperation at times, or even just curiosity, into a much more powerful space.
To see this image, to see the normality of it, to see the size of it, and to see themselves in it as well. And it just to have that such an impact in people's lives in that way, in different ways as well, whether they're the supporter, whether they're the person, whether that's they're viewing their future as a young girl, whether they're viewing family members, whether they're reminding themselves of their life and their process and their mother. You know, this connects to every single person, because every single person is connected to this moment.
Is there an additional layer for you because Sunbloom is Black?
Definitely. I think that, well, representation is an issue anyway amongst Black women and people. And I think that it's interesting that the image is a Black woman, and that the image is the only Black woman of the whole range of scarves that you have. Not to say that is why it's picked out, but it is just reflective of the real life issues that are happening in the world with Black maternal health and care, and how this is, again, there's just so much alignment that I don't feel like this is a bad thing. I really feel like this is an opportunity for us to speak about it, for us to see her, to talk about her, and to bring up all of these issues. And it's really a platform for that.
Yeah.
So everything for me about Sunbloom, even though this was censored, even though that there's been this issue, I feel like this is really the start of many conversations that need to be had.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Over the coming weeks, we'll be sharing many more conversations with you. If you'd like to know more about the project and contribute to making it happen, please visit crowdfunder.co.uk/The Motherhood Mural. We need your help to make it all happen. Thank you.